That is a cast too far. And I just tied that fly on. I'll be back. I'm gonna go get that. I hate it when I lose a fly. Okay, so what I want to do here, it's probably better to show you what spay, quotation marks, spay rods can do. I mean, a lot of people wondering why I use spay rods on trout. I'm just going to say, for me, the biggest thing is it's a lot of fun. I love the spay type of casting, or the type that we do, the unique type that we do, the sub-category type we do, Skagit casting. It's just, to me, it's a lot of fun, but it also has some advantages here, and that being the same advantage that spay casting was originally invented for salmon fishing, is that you don't need much back cast room to fish. But we'll just show you a whole bunch of different stuff here and you might see something here that might help you out and apply to fishing situations. As you know, we're not trying to ram this down anybody's throats. Just watch what's going on, and once again, you might see something that will actually help your fishing. I've got a 9-foot 7-inch OPST prototype rod here. It's a 3-weight, extremely light. It's throwing only 175 grain head. To the front of that, I've got 5 feet of floating running line with, looped on there as if it's a tip, a floating tip. And then I just constructed literally a 9-foot leader out of 3 pieces of fluoro, so it's not the perfect leader. But just to show you, I'm not saying I can build a perfect leader just with 3 pieces of mono, set 15, 17, I think, and then 10, and then 4. But I'm going to show you that I could certainly make it work. So if we're fishing short, a lot of this, see that? That's a nice little easy cast, and I tend to, on these light rods, and one of the fun things about it is just single hand them if I'm doing short distance. And what I got on there is a little soft tackle, and it is weighted, so you'll see it plopping in there a little bit. But real easy, gentle casting. And I want to step in here real close for a second just to show, what, I don't know what that is, 20-foot cast. If I were fishing brookies, right in there, right next to the tree there. Nice, easy roll cast. So we're at about 20 feet right there. And the accuracy is decent. And you can see I'm not expending hardly any energy. Oops, that one came right out there, right next to the bank there. So I'm going to step back a few feet and just show you what this rod, this line system, casting system, can do as far as distance goes. So I've stepped back a few feet here. And there's a stick. And I'm just going to stick with a single-handed at this distance. Once again, just nice and easy. And I'm getting more line out so I can start to look at that, right in the pocket there. Now I've got the full head out, so I can go ahead and use just about any cast I want to now. And I'm using the downstream C right there, right in front of the little log jam. Good place for a trout to be if it wasn't 90 degrees today. There we go, right in front of the log jam. And like I said, that's it's plopping in there pretty good, but it is weighted. So I'm going to step back a few more feet, and I'm getting to the distance where I may switch to double-handed, or let's see, try a couple single-handed. And you can see that has some energy behind it now, doing them single-handed. And the versatility of this line is that it can do almost anything, but that doesn't mean it's, if I was fishing dry flies and stuff sometimes, and I wanted to fish streamers sometimes and nymphs sometimes, that's what this line is awesome for. And it excels at throwing larger than normal stuff on your fly rod. But if I was nothing but, if I were just fishing dry flies all the time, I'd be the first to admit this is not the line I'm going to choose, because it's a little heavy-handed, but that wasn't bad. I think we're at a distance to our little miniature log jam there. We're probably approaching 50, 55 feet. So we just started with a little upstream breeze here. We're gonna, no, that didn't work. One thing is sometimes it can take a little bit to, sometimes with a new rod, get the feel for it. This is literally, no, too much power. Okay. Okay. Having a bit of trouble. It's a new rod. Only second time I've cast it, but in a little different system. You can see the casting's not going well. You could get mad and stand out here and try to pound it out. What I do, after I've put out a few bad casts, is shorten everything up. Shorten everything up, which will force you to use a little less energy. Okay, let's see here. And what we may have here is too much energy developing in it. There we go. Okay, sometimes when you switch from a bigger fly, yesterday I was throwing a big streamer. If you have a line that throws a big streamer really well and you try to switch off to a much, much smaller fly, literally yesterday I was throwing a 3.5 inch, probably close to 4 inch streamer, and right now I've got a size 12 wet fly here. If it threw that streamer really well, if there's that big a size difference, then you're probably going to have to switch lines. I have a 175 on here, and the thing to do, the fact that this light fly is becoming so difficult to cast is telling me that I should probably switch lines to 150. There, I'm getting the cast, but I had to make a major. You've got several options to do. One, of course, the first one, not necessarily the easiest, but the most convenient, because you're not having to switch anything out, is you have to change your casting. But that may be much more difficult than it sounds. See that? There's another bad cast. In this case, what I'm trying to do is make my sweep much, much lower so that I keep what I call a stickier anchor for that lighter fly, to try to compensate for the fact that I don't have the big fly which created a heavy anchor on this. Now I got a light fly which wants to come out of the river too easy. So that one worked beautiful, right? But you see how low I had to keep that, sweep that rod tip, and that can be difficult. I mean, it takes a lot of concentration here. I'm having to change my casting. Real low, there we go, see that? So if it is too much of a change and you can't seem to make the adjustment, the thing to do in this case, once again, switching from a very big heavy fly to a little fly, is to take this 175 head off and drop it to 150 grain head. Then you won't be overpowering the system. And now, I'll tell you another thing I could do here. The other thing I could do is, once again, I rigged this up with approximately 9-foot leader. I could pull this in and add another 2 or 3 feet of tippet on it, make it a 12-foot leader. That also makes a heavier anchor, okay? So that's a couple of options there that you can try if you're finding, if you're having problems in the situation I just described, of fishing a heavy, heavy fly or heavy, heavy system, and then going to a drastically smaller, lighter fly. So number one is try to change your casting, adjust your casting accordingly. If it's too difficult to adjust your casting accordingly, I would actually then add 2 to 3 feet of tippet to try to make your anchor heavier. And if that doesn't work, then I would change heads. Switch out in this case, I'd switch out the 175 and switch it out to the 150. But I'm not going to change because, in this case, where I'm having troubles on this is going for distance, where I'm having to apply more power. But most of this fishing in this little river doesn't require distance. And this particular line weight is casting very well single-handed. And you'll find that a lot of times that the line that you can cast well single-handed may be a little off for your double-handed casting. So you may have to switch. So In this case, we anticipate more single-handed casting here because of how small this river is than we do double-handed. So I'm going to stick with the line that works, feels the best on single-handed casting. So let's do that. Ooh, that was right on it. You can see, it's really easy to cover the width of this little river, even with a little single-handed deal. And one of the things I like is I still generally cast a little better on my offhand side using two hands than I do with single hand. So you will see me still using two hands on my offhand side here. Okay, what we're just fishing is this little guy here. It's kind of heavily weighted soft tackle. It looks a little beat down here. But what we're going to do now, and I was fishing a streamer yesterday, about 3.5 inch. You'll see here in a second. I was fishing that yesterday, shorter leader, exact same line, exact same system. So I lengthened out the leader, put on this little guy here, and you saw it, it fished, cast and fished. Maybe not exactly perfectly, but it did all right. And now I'm going to show you, we're going to switch over to a big streamer. And the only thing we're going to do here is we're just going to shorten the leader up, okay? All right, all I did was cut back the leader here. Back in the 10-pound, I think we're at about 6 feet, which is, in most cases, it's fine for warm water fishing in a leader of just 6 feet on a fly this big. And a lot of people would ask, why in the heck? Well, I'm going to show you the size, the difference in change. Plus, it's got a little split shot on there. Here's what we switched from. Well, I can't get it out. You can see it. Can you see that? You see that fly? That wet fly soft tackle? And here's what we're switching to, okay? And why would you do that? Why would you fish a fly like this on a 3-weight? I'm going to tell you, most people don't have a trophy. They don't have blue ribbon trout stream out in their backyard. They don't have a trophy bass stream or trophy musky lake close to home. They have to travel to do it. But a lot of people have little, what they call brown lines, marginal habitat, maybe streams or even ditches. For me, I have one where it has bass. Most of the bass are running 6, 8 inches. Big would be 10 or 12. And it has, pike. And the pike are running 16 to 21, 22 inches. And to get those guys, especially the pike, you got to be using a fairly big streamer, but they're not big pike. Once again, they're 16, 18, 20 inches. They're a total riot on a 4-weight rod if you can cast a big enough fly on a 4-weight rod. And this is doable on our system. Okay, let's get this thing wet. All right, so this is what it takes, to catch it. Or at least on my little brown line, this is what it takes to catch a 16, 18, 20-inch pike or an 8, 10-inch bass. They love this stuff. But, those little fish are not a lot of fun on an 8-weight rod. But here I'm using a 3-weight, 9-foot 7-inch 3-weight, and I can cast this, and I can cast it effectively. So I'm into those little fish with the fly that is required to catch them. And I'm using a rod that's of a size that I can have fun. Look at that thing. I'll bet that would catch a barracuda. Okay, so here we are with the 3-weight. We'll just pretend like there are pike in here. And once again, this is casting distance where I'm just going to single-hand it because I don't need the power of double-handing it here. But that's one of the fun things about these lighter, real ultra, the micro Skagit rods is that they're easy to single-hand. So you can see, that streamer was a good 3.5, maybe. I don't think it's quite 4, but getting close. And if I were fishing, well, let's say this river had big browns, which maybe it does, but like I said, we just hit it at the wrong time, 95 degrees weather. But whether it be bass, pike, big trout, 3.5-inch streamer, nice big meal on a little 3-weight rod, and you can see, very, very effectively covering this river. Very effectively. And it's fun. Yeah. It's a real fun way to fish. Doesn't take that long to learn. And you know, you don't expect to cast something like this 100 feet. You use it within its design parameters. It's a 3-weight rod. It'll throw, you know, quite well out to about 50-something feet with the size of a fly. But that's what you'd want in a river this size if you're fishing for big fish in a river of this size. You know, big fish relative to the size of the stream is what I should say. Oop. Nice. That log there should be a brown there. Okay, I'm going to switch to little rod now, all right? We've switched to, what is this thing? It's a 7-foot 4/5 weight glass rod. And I don't know if I should mention manufacturer or not, but I will tell you this, it normally costs, I think it's 129 bucks. I just waited around till it was on sale because they go on sale 3 to 4 times a year for 79 bucks. And it's a sweetheart. And once again, we have the same line. We have a 175 OPST 175 grain line. It's got 5 feet of running line on as a floating tip. And we're throwing that big 3.5-inch streamer. And you can see for, you know, what would you choose a 7-foot 4/5 weight for? You're not choosing to cast 100 feet, you're choosing to cast 20, 30, 40, maybe 50 feet. And we're just casting right now because we got a big black hole right here. Maybe there's a pike in here or something big and nasty. But you can see, once again, 7-foot 4/5 weight rod. And I got this big streamer on there, and it's casting it just fine. If I wanted to, I'd switch off, lengthen out my leader, and switch off to a size 12, 14 wet fly and start swinging soft tackles, you know. All in the same rod. Same rod, same line. Let's add just a few more feet and see if we can get it on that seam. But once again, you know, you got a brown line stream that's not full of trophy fish, but you got fish that require little fish that want big meal, like pike, bass. This is a line that'll do it for you. The thing about glass is it's a little slower, and the reason I like the glass actually is for fishing the shorter distances. The rod loads up quicker, or I should say at a shorter distance. Accuracy, therefore, seems to be better for me with a glass rod when I'm fishing, let's say, under 35 feet. Then the other thing is you can feel, you know, when you're fishing these small streams like that, you're not fishing for huge fish, fishing 8, 9, 10, 12-inch fish. The glass rod really gives a good feel on those fish. It's a total blast. And might take you a day or so to slow down and get the tempo of the glass rod, because it's definitely different than graphite. It usually takes me about half a day or so. And the other thing about graphite is if you're going in brush busting, it's very, very durable and tough. So it's got a lot going for it in the right situation. Look at that. That's pretty impressive for glass. Real impressive. Once again, I'm throwing a big streamer here. So if you can imagine if this was a bass river, and this is, that other rod I was using here, you know, I was doing it mostly just to test the rod out. But to fish a river like this, I would pick this rod. It's going to let me get in close, get under cover. I mean, fish out from under cover. And you can see the distance on it. You know, this is not a tiny stream. This rod covers it almost to the bank. With a little weighting combined, casting combined with smart weighting, and you've got this size of river is easily fished with a glass 7-weight. I mean, a glass 7-foot glass rod. So now let's step just a little bit away. You do need some room. You got to have some room to form a D-loop. But Look at that. Whoa, dude, if that was a brown trout in there. If this were a big brown trout river. One thing is, when you're casting targets, and obviously it takes a while to learn this, you have to, get fairly proficient with your casting. But one of the things about casting targets, cast a little high, so that maybe you think you're going to overshoot a little bit, and right before it's going over the snag that you want to fish, you just kick the rod back a little bit and drop the fly in. And it doesn't work 100% of the time, but there we go, right there, right in front of the jam. And you can see, well, if you could see, I can see that streamer. It's like running like 6 inches, 6 inches right along that log there, which would be perfect presentation for a big predator fish hiding in there. And once again, we do have to have some room, but having these short rods, ooh, you see that right there. And the other thing I want to say is, remember, you can manipulate everything about spade type casts. You can move around to help you out in a situation. I got this branch right here with a rod length. I want to try to shorten the room I need for a D-loop, because my standard cast on a C, I would go like this. Because my fly and stuff is back here, my D would probably come back to here. So what I'm going to do, once again, it just takes practice, but just be aware of the fact that as you learn to cast and get better, you can manipulate this. Now what I'm going to do is cut over further towards the middle of the stream so that I place my fly and line there. And see that? I can shorten this distance here. Let's do that one more time. Okay, once again, the normal, I would come around to here, put the fly and line back there, and instead I'm going to push this out a little towards the middle. You see that? See that? Requires a little less distance back here on the back cast. Okay, now we got more room, so I don't have to worry about it. There's the normal. See, the fly just dropped in behind me. Look at that, right next to that log. And a lot of what may look like, pretty impressive accuracy here is done by pulling the fly back. You're overcasting. You see that it's going to go to the log. Instead of letting it go and catching the log there, you just give it a pull back and it'll bring the fly back and, drop it into the river instead of launching it up into the foliage there. I'm not necessarily I'm looking in the direction I want the cast to go, but I'm not really, I guess what I want to say is not really gauging the distance. I'm just shooting over my target, and when I think the fly is just about there, I give the rod a little pull back to drop it in. And so I guess what I'm saying about this type of target fishing, and maybe you can do that. I'll bet the little trout are trying to spawn with this thing. But I guess, maybe people actually aim, but it doesn't seem like a real good way to get a fly in. To me, that's a downward trajectory. It just doesn't seem right. What I like to do, like I said, in this case, is go over, look up above your target, 3 or 4 feet, shoot your fly in there, and you're going to overcast it a little bit, and just before your fly gets into the foliage, just give it a little kick back on the rod, and the fly will come back and drop in. So what I'm really looking at when I make my cast to targets is direction, not so much distance. See that little kickback on it? So the other thing, in order to do that, is I have probably a good 6, 7, 8 feet more line than it takes to cast that distance. So if that distance, let's guess here, let's say it's 55 feet. I've got here 62, 63 feet of line. You got to have enough line to actually let the fly overshoot a little bit. I think see that? Dropped it right in there. So I got to tell you, you know, for if you're in the kind of the beginning stage of the fly casting, this all probably sounds really intimidating. I mean, it looks like everything's happening so fast, but it's not. After you've cast for a while, you'll learn. You've actually got time to do that. It may look like it's happening really quick here on camera, but after you've done enough casting, you'll find you got plenty of time to actually make a forward cast and pull the fly back also. It's not that difficult. Just practice is all it is. Practice time on the rod. And you can see I haven't changed the amount of line I'm using at all, so I'm varying my distance by that, pulling back. Now, where that doesn't work so well is when you have stuff hanging over the river like we've got coming up here. In that case, you don't have a choice but to try to sidearm it. So it takes it's a little more difficult to achieve accuracy with that. I didn't get it quite way back in there, but I did get it somewhat in where I wanted it to be. Once again, it's more of a, there we go, right next to that underwater log there. But when you're doing the sidearm stuff, you really you can't afford to have any pause back here, because if you pause for 1/10 of a second, line's going in the water and then you've got no forward cast. So it's a little quicker tempo if you're sidearming it to keep this D-loop up off the water. Oy. See that? That fly was headed straight into that bush. But use the pullback, and that time I really pulled it back. Fly literally hit the leaf and dropped in. So anyways, pretty effective, I think, pretty effective method for doing this type of stuff, fishing a streamer, or if I could, you know, I could be doing a brace of soft hackles, whatever. Whoa, that was weird. And sometimes you get that weird cast, but that's what happens when you're trying to, like, you know, you're speeding stuff up to try to keep your D-loop up off the water. Whoa, there we go, nice. Yeah, so sometimes you're having to, you know, do unconventional types of casting. Don't worry about it if every once in a while something weird happens or you blow a cast. It's just part of it. Let's see if we can offhand here. Offhand's definitely tougher. No doubt about it. And a lot of times if I'm not able to make it, I'll use both hands, even on this little tiny glass rod. See that? Better. That's why one of the things I like about fishing, knowing how to fish double-handed, is, you know, for me anyways, knowing double-handing, when I go to my offsides, if it's not working out single-handed on my offsides, it almost always does, even on this little tiny rod, which is not a double-hander. I just tape the reel forward so that I have something to grab onto and back and do my double-handed stuff. Oops, a little far. But you can see that I had the power to get the distance, which I didn't have when I was trying to do it single-handed. Because for me, it's just awkward. I mean, offhand, single-handed casting is just an awkward deal. If I do it too much, I actually get tennis elbows, so I know that something's not right. Something's, you know, physically not good, torquing the wrong way there. But with two hands, I don't seem to have that problem. I don't seem to get the same stress with two hands here. Whoops. Let's quit talking and start casting here. Let's do this. Easy. There we go. See that? Right under there. Nice! As George Cook would say. Okay, let's go get something to eat. I'm getting hungry. My batteries are getting low too.
We got fat little heads and stuff. Yeah. You ready?
Yep.
Dude, check that out. It's a black-sided chub or whatever. Look at that. Sweet! There.